Capcom stirs up mayhem with Monster Hunter Online, Firefall finally gets an open beta date, World of Tanks security is breached, Hawken adds a support mech, and more. This is Hannah, and you're watching Free to Play Weekly. Capcom, in conjunction with Tencent, has announced their intentions to publish an MMO based on the extremely popular Monster Hunter franchise. The announcement came during a conference being held by Tencent in Beijing. The MMO utilizes Crytek's CryEngine 3, the same engine used to power the recent FPS hit Far Cry 3, and is set to begin beta testing in June. Unfortunately, this is where the news takes an unfortunate turn, as the game will only be published in China for now, with no official word on whether the Monster Hunter MMO will ever make it to the Western market. The MMO is said to reproduce the screen style, combat feel, mission modes, and other classic monster boss battles found in other Monster Hunter titles. Other features detailed include drivable vehicles on both land and water, destructible environments which can then be used by monsters as weapons against the hunters, persistent visible damage to monsters, and even the time and weather will have an effect on the in-game world. Be sure to check out the official post on MMOBomb for the full details. After almost 2 years in closed beta and numerous reworks to the various progression systems, Red 5 Studios has finally announced the open beta date for their MMO TPS, Firefall. The sci-fi open-world shooter will enter into open beta starting on July 9th. During the open beta, Red 5 plans on adding new features and content, including an episodic story campaign, more dynamic missions, world events, and even open-world PvP. Leading up to the open beta, Red 5 plans on rolling out some major milestones starting in May. These milestones include a new city power level system where players can receive bonuses and rewards by increasing the power level of major cities by completing local PvE content, melding exploration through the use of special dropships, chosen instances, and new crafting and battle frame progression, which even includes a new UI. James McCauley, Vice President of Development at Red 5, remarked that for them, open beta isn't a traditional marketing beta, but rather an opportunity to include many more players in our community-driven development process. He goes on to say that they are looking forward to welcoming these new players into the community and continuing to build an amazing game together. Are you looking forward to the open beta? With blocky graphics and a title like Minimum, you'd half expect TimeGate Studios' latest shooter to offer little more than cheap block-filled thrills. But upon closer inspection, the free-to-play shooter suddenly evolves into something quite the opposite. What it lacks in visuals, it certainly makes up for in sheer scale and absolute ridiculousness. Giant titans wage war for their respective sides while blocky insects skitter across the arena floor. I'm pretty sure I even saw some red dinosaurs in there. Meanwhile, players are busy shooting, slashing, collecting, and upgrading their weapons with power-ups that only last as long as you can. Unfortunately, we won't have the opportunity to pilot the game's gigantic golems. Instead, players can only influence the Titan's powers by harvesting energies from creatures within the environment. This, I assume, then allows their team's Titan to go forth and beat the crap out of everything and anything. TimeGate originally had planned on allowing players to participate in an early alpha test last week, but at the last moment they decided to cancel the test and extend their internal testing period while they wait to roll out a larger deployment a bit further down the road. World of Tanks has suffered a security incident. While exact details are sparse, Wargaming has confirmed that some personal information, including passwords and email addresses, were compromised. However, no financial details were obtained. In an announcement on the official World of Tanks website, Wargaming stated, "As a part of our usual security practices, we recently became aware that some personal information may have been compromised due to a security incident. We immediately launched an investigation into the incident and can assure you that no financial information was accessed. However, we believe that some password hashes and email addresses may have been affected by the compromise." Wargaming is urging all players to reset their Wargaming ID account as soon as possible, including your passwords. To encourage users to do so, the company has initiated a Change Your Password event whereby players who update their account password are rewarded with 300 gold. In any real battle, there are always unsung heroes, the medics who risk life and limb to help others with their own lives and subsequent limbs. So while the mech FPS Hawken may be filled with robots locked in perpetual slugfests of explosive proportions, there was still a supportive niche yet to be filled. With the latest patch just released, Hawken is adding just that, a support mech called the Technician. The Technician marks the first mech with an active healing tool which can heal allies or even damage enemies. Regardless of the intended target, while actively adding or removing health, the gun also heals the Technician, making it a 2-for-1 exchange. In addition, the Technician also has Stacking Corrosive Weapon, which causes enemies to take increased damage, and a sawed-off twin cannon, making this mech no slouch in the damage department. The update also added a brand new large-scale map called Frontline, which features a mix of wide-open areas for all-out brawls and an assortment of alleys, tunnels, and narrow passageways for those who prefer a more sneaky approach. A complete weapon balance overhaul was also thrown in for good measure, which brings burst damage down and increases the viability of automatic weapons within their specific combat ranges. Earlier this month, WebZen announced a new 4-player co-op mode for their military shooter, Arctic Combat. Not wanting to jump the gun and accuse Arctic Combat of following in the footsteps of practically every other lobby-based free-to-play shooter with a zombie mode, we held out hope the new baddies were more than just hordes of the risen undead. Turns out we were right. Well, sort of. The new threat is not a horde of zombies, but instead, swarms of aliens. 15 alien species to be exact. The new mode has players tasked with protecting a nuclear reactor while fending off attacks from both ground and air assailants. Players will have to fight out the usual waves of enemies, each with their own attack patterns, boss battles, varying levels of difficulty, a new map, weapons, and skill upgrades are all on the table for this update as well. Altogether, this marks the first major content update for Arctic Combat since its launch in December. And the game of the week is Pirates of the Burning Sea. Pirates of the Burning Sea is a high seas action MMO set in the 18th century. Players can select to fight for one of 3 nations or choose the role of a pirate and battle it out for glory, power, and riches. Pirates of the Burning Sea possesses 5 extremely niche career paths for players to take, ranging from the naval officer, who has excellent defensive and offensive capabilities, to the free trader, a career path for players dedicated to creating huge economic wealth for themselves, and the cutthroat, who's a jack of all trades possessing some abilities from all careers. Combat revolves around both fierce real-time ship-to-ship combat and intense melee sword fights which break out while boarding enemy vessels in an attempt to take the ship over. The game's conquest system turns any of the more than 80 ports available in the game into a battleground, as rival players accrue points in both PvE and PvP, which also determines who controls the port and all of its valuable resources. Burning Sea features a completely player-run economy, which will have players building their own quarries, distilleries, and timber mills, while managing large-scale production and distribution in a cutthroat world where risk-taking is required in order for a chance at success. Thanks for tuning in this week, you guys. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment down below. Anything you want to see more about, be sure and check out on our website, MMOBomb.com, and I'll see you guys next week.